Hi, first grade. We are moving into Unit 3 of Module 4, and today we're going to start a text called A Place for Birds. And this book is really going to help us to answer two of our guiding questions for this unit. The first is, why should we care about birds? And we've talked a lot about that because birds help many living things. We're going to get some more insight into how birds help living things in this story as well. Our second guiding question is, how can people care for birds so they live and grow? And this book is going to show us ways that humans hurt birds, but ways that humans can help birds. And a lot of times we do things that we don't even think of, or we don't intend or mean to hurt birds. But the great thing is that there's tons of suggestions in here for how we can help birds. So our particular learning target for this lesson is I can identify the author's point in the text, A Place for Birds. I can identify bird problems and how people solve them. So the materials that we're going to use today are your Caring for Birds notebook. We're going to be on pages 2 and 3, and you're going to need a pencil. So we're going to read a couple pages from this story, and then we're going to add on to that graphic organizer about how people harm birds, but how people help birds. A Place for Birds. Birds fill our world with bright colors and sweet songs, but sometimes people do things that make it hard for them to live and grow. If we work together to help these amazing winged creatures, there will always be a place for birds. A bird's most exceptional feature is its feathers. They help a bird stay warm and dry, hide from enemies, and attract mates. Most important of all, feathers help a bird fly. Air flows smoothly over a bird's wing feathers. A bird uses its tail feathers to steer, slow down, and keep its balance. Like all living things, birds need safe places to raise their young. Many birds lay their eggs close to the ocean. When people set aside and protect parts of the beach, birds can live and grow. Piping plover. Piping plovers lay eggs on beaches. Because the eggs and chicks blend in with their sandy surroundings, sunbathers and joggers may step on them by accident. In the late 1980s, people began fencing off some beach areas while the little birds raised their young. By 2010, the plover population had begun to recover. Birds have trouble surviving when their natural homes are destroyed. Some birds can only live in thick woodlands with lots of large old trees. When people protect the land and the trees, birds can live and grow. Spotted owl. During the last 150 years, more than 80% of the old-growth forests in the western United States have been cut down. If the logging continues, the forests and the creatures living there will soon be gone. In 2008, a large area of land in Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico was set aside to help protect one group of spotted owls. Now, scientists are hoping the birds will be able to survive. Migrating birds can be confused by windows too. When people mark their windows or pull down shades, birds can live and grow. Anna's hummingbird. Each year, at least 365 million birds die after crashing into windows in the United States. Migrating birds, such as Anna's hummingbirds, are at the greatest risk. The birds are fooled by windows that reflect trees or bushes. They may also crash if they can see through a window to a window on an opposite wall. You can help these birds by adding images to your windows or by using window blinds or shades. Some birds can only build their nests in small, hollow places. When people build nesting boxes that are the right size and shape, birds can live and grow. Eastern bluebird. Eastern bluebirds used to nest inside dead trees and rotten fence posts. But over the years, people cut down dead trees on their land, and farmers replaced wooden fences with metal ones. Luckily, bird watchers noticed the problem. They began building nest boxes for bluebirds, and the effort paid off. Bluebirds have made an amazing comeback. Adult birds face many dangers too. Some birds have trouble surviving when new animals invade the areas where they live. When people stop animals from spreading into new areas and work together to get rid of the unwanted invaders, native birds can live and grow. Crested honeycreeper. Early settlers brought farm animals to Hawaii. Some of them escaped into the wild and bred in large numbers. Over time, goats ate many rainforest plants. Pigs tore up native plants as they rooted through the soil. Crested honeycreepers began to have trouble finding enough flower nectar to eat, but concerned people took action. They built fences to keep pigs and goats out of the places where crested honeycreepers live. Some birds must travel long distances every spring and autumn. Bright city lights can confuse these migrating birds and cause them to crash into buildings. When building owners turn off lights at night during the migration season, birds can live and grow. Hermit thrush. Every autumn, millions of birds fly south in search of warmer weather and more food. In the spring, they return to their northern homes to mate and raise young. Because hermit thrushes use the stars to navigate, they often fly towards city lights and crash into tall buildings. In 1995, skyscrapers in Chicago, Illinois, began turning off or dimming their lights while birds are migrating. This policy saves more than 10,000 birds each year. It also saves energy. Birds that eat seeds don't have to migrate, but if they go to backyard bird feeders, they may be attacked by a hungry house cat. When people keep their pet cats indoors, birds can live and grow. Northern cardinal. Cats are hunters. Their natural instincts tell them to attack anything that moves, including cardinals and other birds. Peter Mara, a scientist at the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute in Washington, D.C., estimates that cats kill as many as 3.7 billion birds every year in the United States. Keeping pet cats indoors can save cardinals, chickadees, and other birds that visit backyard feeders. Okay, first grade. So now is the time that you're going to grab your module book. And we are going to be on Caring for Birds notebook, page 2 and 3. So our goal is to talk about the author's point and then to fill out this graphic organizer with bird problems, but also how people help solve those bird problems. So they've given us 2 here already. Well, first let's talk about the author's point. So the author's point, the reason that the author wrote this story was to explain to us that people do things to cause problems for birds, but people also find ways to help birds. And we're going to go deeper into the author's reasons by talking about the problems and then the ways that people help solve those problems. So we have the first 2 here. In the first part of our story, we talked about how the piping plovers have their eggs stepped on. And the ways that people helped was that they created some beach space to protect the eggs. We read about Anna's hummingbirds especially, who are susceptible to crashing into windows, and the ways that people help included marking their window. We also read about the owl, and if you remember, the problem was that we humans are cutting down their trees. which is the habitat that they live in. So that's how we're causing a problem. But we help and solve the problem by saving trees. Okay, if you need a little bit more time to get these two down, go ahead and pause. Let's go on to Bird Notebook, page 3. All right, so we read about how birds need homes, especially as we start to develop areas that were once open to all kinds of wildlife and animals. We start to take away their natural habitats. So one of those problems was building over birds' habitats. And when we do that, we take away a safe place for them to live and grow. So the way that people help is building bird boxes so birds can live safely. All right. Another problem we talked about was that animals that are not supposed to be in certain areas can kind of come through and destroy vegetation or bird homes or even prey on the birds themselves, and that does not create a place or space where birds can live and grow. So the problem was that animals were taking over. And the way that people helped was to put up fences to protect birds. Again, crew, if you need time to catch up, just pause the video and join us again when you're ready. Another problem that we read about was that birds were attracted to bright lights and they crashed into skyscrapers. Let me show you a picture of the skyscrapers. So certain birds use the stars to navigate themselves as they're migrating, which means moving from one area to another. And one of the problems is when they get into really big cities, all of these tiny window lights look like the stars, so they get really confused. We call these really tall buildings in cities skyscrapers. So they were crashing into the skyscrapers because they thought these were stars. So that's a problem because it was killing tens of thousands of birds. So the solution in the way that people helped was to dim the lights. And remember, we've talked about the word dim way back in Module 2. Dim means to turn it down to make it less bright. All right, our last problem was that cats kill birds. So the suggestion and ways that people could help was to keep their cats indoors. All right, crew. So your job is to get yourself caught up on this graphic organizer. Remember, we're working on page 2 and page 3. If you need some time to go through and finish up, pause and rewind where you need to. Remember, though, our biggest takeaway and the author's point of the story that we read, the reason that we read it today, was to understand that people do things to cause problems for birds, but people also find ways to help birds. So we're going to take this information, and in a couple days, you're going to create an art project that helps to educate people in your community or even in your house about how they can help birds. So step 1, Finish your graphic organizers on both pages, snap a picture of page 3, and upload it to Dojo.